Welcome to the Easy Computer Fixes channel, and this is a little tips and trick video for those that are looking to buy USB cables and cables of any type, not just USB, but whatever cable you might actually be purchasing. One of the biggest problems with cables is that they are highly different, ranging from the really cheap one that you can buy for a couple of bucks to, expensive cables that might cost you $100 or more. And of course, there's a debate on this of, whether or not you should buy cheap or not cables. Here's the big thing about this. When you purchase cables, especially USB cables, try not to go on the cheap side, but you don't need to pay the big prices either. $100 cables are way too expensive and absolutely have nothing better to offer. At the same time, a $1.99 cable might actually not be the best cable that you can get. The reason here is try to be kind of more of a mid-range cable type. USB cables, for example, are very, very important for good connectivity, to be of a minimum of quality. They do, in some cases, depending on the devices you plug in, have high currents. So make sure that you don't buy the cheapest USB cables around, because you might have problems. We've seen even some cheap cables actually breaking USB ports, especially in the USB-C computers, because some of them couldn't handle the power load and they would just make your USB ports blow up. So be very careful in choosing cables. Look at the comments from other users. If you purchase a cable, most places where you buy them online, people will tell you, hey, I've purchased this cable, it's good, I like it. Don't go too cheap. Once again, stay away from dollar store type cables. These are horrible. They're at the most basics that you can have as cables. And you know what? It's better to have a good cable that you'll have for years and works well than have 20 different little cables that you'll pay at a cheap price. It's not always a good idea to be at the minimum price here. So once again, like I say, don't go on the cheap cables, but don't spend $100 on a cable either. It's way too much money. My last purchase of USB cables were in the $10 to $15 range. So these were shown, and when I actually purchased them, you could see that they were, much better in construction. The cheap ones tend to be thinner, and it shows that they're kind of cheap compared to others. And one last thing, remember that cheap cables are often not rated for faster speeds. So if you're a USB cable, for example, a cheap $2 cable might not be USB 3. It might be USB 2, and sometimes I've seen actually USB 1.1 compliant only, which is the worst cable you can buy, honestly. So be careful, don't be too cheap, but you don't have to pay the extra big prices either. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Thank you for watching.